cardio or weights? When it comes to losing body fat, what is better, walking or weights?
So many times we go back to the past and we believe that the best way to burn fat is with, and it's not.
What if she doesn't care about longevity? They will compromise living a long, powerful life to be thin.
The thinnest people I've ever seen were walking on the runway, not defined, not lean, probably not incredibly strong.
If the goal is to be smaller without muscle, well, then maybe the answer is, I want to be smaller and tighter. I want to have less cellulite, and I want to have power, and I want to have more confidence and a better shape. What's the answer?
If we want to not become frail, the muscles below our belly button are the most important.
Is it too late if I'm 75 years old and I've never lifted weights?
Is it slower to put on muscle at 75 than it was at 35? Yes, but
I had osteopenia.
weren't you surprised by that?
I was shocked. I lift heavy weights. I do all the things. How is this possible?
You worked out your whole life. 70% of all hip fractures are in women. Snap your fingers. The minute you hit the ground and break that hip, you have a 30% chance of dying in the first year due to the complications of having a major fracture like that. 50% of the time, you will not get to go home. We can't just say our knees hurt. We need to do these things. What's better, cardio or lifting? I hope we don't have to choose. But if we have to choose, I think we can accomplish a lot more in terms of health and longevity by.
Today, my guest is friend Dr. Vonda Wright. She has a master's degree in oncology nursing. She's double board certified as an orthopedic surgeon with a specialty in sports medicine. She's one of the world's most renowned experts in aging and longevity, a popular keynote speaker. She's been on countless stages. You've probably seen her on ABC, NBC, New York Times, a number of shows featuring doctors specifically talking about what you need to do in terms of aging powerfully. And today she's here to answer the age-old question, what's better, weights or cardio? Dr. Vonda, welcome back.
I'm so thrilled to see you again.
I'm really excited about this book.
Unbreakable.
We all have longevity books, but most of the content out there when it comes to longevity, sorry, no offense, is from the dudes.
It is. And you know what? Women from the outside down to the cellular level, we are different. You know, that's that old book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Yes, down to the cellular level, our lab has found the differences in stem cells. So I just thought it was time for women's stories, women's perspective, interpreting the science through that lens.
Things are different. What would you say are some of the biggest maybe myths when it comes to women and aging that you find every day? Because you work in clinic, you're treating people, you're doing surgeries.
Right.
What is the one myth that probably frustrates you the most that women still are holding on to when it comes to aging?
You know, I think the most common myth is that it's this, it's just aging. There's nothing I can do about it. That is the myth, because that is both a mindset hindrance and a physical hindrance. Because if we do not believe that we can be amazing in the future, then what's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, why would we even get off the couch?
I think we've been brainwashed. I know I had a negative belief around even the word menopause or aging. The way I heard my mom and her friends and older generations talk about it was like you're done.
Right.
You know, and they just always complained about gaining weight and being uncomfortable and being miserable. Do you feel like that's changing?
Well, if I have anything to do about it, if you have anything to do about it, it's going to change, because a part of what I'm trying to do right now and part of what this book does is really trying to pivot our mindset. I call it mindset mobilization, because I sometimes kiddingly make fun of being 25. We were all 25 and it was fun and easy. But the reality is we didn't have the wisdom we have now. We hadn't figured out enough stuff, right? At 25, I still had decades of education to go. I hadn't settled into a stable relationship, all the life things. I hadn't figured out enough hard things. Whereas now, it may not be as easy or as flip as it was when I was 25 physically, but in terms of authenticity, mental attitude, able to figure things out, not being afraid of the future anymore, this is prime time. And I think that the myth that aging is an inevitable decline is a mindset problem and a work problem, a physical work problem.
What do you mean by a physical work problem?
Meaning it takes effort to keep this amazing temple, body, whatever we want to call this, fine-tuned. I mean, it's a rough analogy, but if you think of this as whatever best sports car you can think of, a Lamborghini, a truly vintage car, if you just put it in a garage and sit it there and never drive it, it's still going to rust out.
Right.
But if you invest in it and you take it out for a spin and you're conscientious, it will become vintage and not a rusted out. And it's the same with our bodies. It's a silly analogy, but we are mechanical beings. So we invest mentally and we invest physically.
The question that so many people who are watching this right now or listening want to know, and I get asked it all the time, I'm sure you do too, which is better for me? Walking, like cardio? Should I be doing cardio or should I be doing weights? And if someone were to ask you that, what question would you ask them in return?
So many times we go back to the past and we believe that the best way to burn fat is with cardio, and it's not. Well, number one, I would say two things. I would say, why do we have to choose? And number two, I would ask them, do you believe you are worth the daily investment in your health? Because, and I would ask that second question, because I feel like, at least in the patients I take care of, sometimes the inability to invest time has less to do with actual time, but prioritization. Like everything must be more important. In fact, a few weeks ago, one of my private clients came in and I build Unbreakable blueprints for people so that they can go off and work on their own. Part of my work with her was identifying time in her day. So we just went through her day from sunup to sundown and we found 3 hours. But what she was doing in the afternoon after she got off of work was waiting around to see what her family needed from her. And
Boy, is that
sometimes
relatable.
ended up doing nothing because nobody needed anything. Right? So isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I think that's a common plight for so many. And then as we get older, not always true, but I think for a lot of women, you go through this season where you are on call for everybody.
Of course, you're the glue.
Yeah. And then suddenly, not that everyone who's watching is an empty nester, but like you do go through this stage where you're like, okay, maybe my kids are driving, so I have a little bit more time. And you still feel kind of guilty in making that time your own.
Well, exactly. You don't know how to seize that time because I have a 17-year-old. She's exactly in this space. She started driving last year. She's doing her own thing. When she's home, she's up in her room talking to all the people she talks to. But still, that doesn't mean that I am totally committed every hour of the day because what if she needs me, right? And so when I say things like this, it's not a guilt trip. It's just like the reality is it's okay if I say I will be available after 4 p.m. because I'm going to work out from 3 to 4 or wherever we find our time. So that's the very long answer to your question of what's better, cardio or lifting, when I answer, do you even believe you're worth it at all?
I do believe I'm worth it.
Yes.
I do believe I'm worth it.
Do.
And let's just be honest and say that she's asking that question not based on longevity, but based on the way she wants to look.
Yeah.
This is the point in the video where I plead with you. I get on my hands and knees because I am not above begging you to please subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to me. Like, listen, we got to support our girls who are over 50 out here trying to make it on YouTube. I really do appreciate every single one of your subscribes, and I read every one of your comments. So please drop a comment. Let me know that today was the day you subscribed. Tell me a little bit about yourself. All right, back to the show.
If we want to store up health for the future, if we want to lean up, which is, in my opinion, how we look best, and we can talk about skinny fat versus lean, then we're going to lift. Because even with lifting, you can get some cardio in. Because I know that when I'm lifting, my heart rate is up. I hope we don't have to choose, but if we have to choose, I think we can accomplish a lot more in terms of health and longevity by taking and looking, by taking the 30 or 45 minutes we can find and lifting with it.
Let's define lifting. What does that mean? So, when I will talk to women about lifting, they'll say, does this count? Like I'm doing Pilates, I'm doing whatever the workout is they're doing on YouTube. I lift these weights that I have at home. I'm using these bands. How do we, what is it we're doing?
Yes.
We're building muscle, right? But is there some form of lifting that's better than others?
Well, it depends what your goal is.
Okay.
So this is the question I ask Bat. What are our goals? Now, in midlife and beyond, I dictate, if you want to take my word for it, we are lifting for strength and power. But let's go backwards. What if somebody has taught you to lift 5 pounds 30 times until failure, right? We're trying to lift until we can't lift that weight anymore. Well, if we're lifting for endurance, we're going to lift the lightest possible weight the most times because we just want to be able to do it like repetitious motion. Okay, well, if you want to lift for endurance, that's how you do it. I personally do not want to lift for endurance, and neither do the people I work for.
Does lifting for endurance actually change the shape of my body the way that she probably wants to?
No, because we're not really building a lot of muscle.
So we're building the ability to do something longer, but we're not building the ability to lift something heavier.
Correct.
Okay.
So then there's lifting for hypertrophy. And to lift for hypertrophy, which just means create enough muscle injury that it heals in a bigger way, we use a mid-range of repetitions, 10 to 15 or so, 3 or 4 sets. And that's more how we lift in our younger years. And I call those our cosmetic muscles. Are those muscles strong? Sure, they're strong. Are they as strong as powerlifting when we are lifting for strength and power? So strength lifting is lifting heavy weights. I'm going to say the range, and then I'm going to tell you what I've chosen as the number.
Okay.
Research backs up 3 to 6 reps for building strength. And I'll tell you how that happens. For my group, probably because I was taught this way, and my strength conditioning coach, when I came back to lifting heavy, we chose 4, which means I can do 4 reps of a weight. I may be able to squeeze out 5, but I'm not doing 6 because if it's a bench press, then one side is falling down or it's coming back towards my chest. That is the definition of heavy, because I'm asked that question all the time. What does heavy actually mean? So many times women are afraid that if they actually lift and get under a metal bar, that they're going to bulk up with huge muscles. They're going to lean up and actually be smaller because it's fat that will bulk you up. Lifting to failure in 4-ish reps, meaning I could lift 1 more, but not 2 or 3 more reps, right? Because 2 things happen when you lift like that. When you're starting out, you rebuild your neuromuscular pathway coordination so that you have muscle fiber bundles contracting together in a unified way, not just one contracting, but really everybody's lifting together, right? And why are we lifting heavy? We are lifting for strength and then power. Power is lifting over time. If people start never having gotten off the couch before, it may take us 6 months, 9 months to even get up to feeling comfortable with our bodies to lifting heavy. Nobody starts out lifting heavy.
I'm glad you made that distinction. So what you're suggesting, if I'm hearing you correctly, is ideally that's where we want to get to, but we need that foundation first.
If we've
where
never
she
done
understands proper form, technique.
Exactly.
Even understanding what failure or near fatigue feels like. Really even understanding your own body to go like, can I do a few more reps and not injure myself? So I have a question for you. Now I've worked with, hands-on thousands and thousands of women. I don't know that there's been any studies to look at this. I hate that we use reps because then women focus on the reps versus the feeling.
How they're feeling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A, and B, it's time under tension for the muscle, correct? So if I'm understanding doing, let's say 4 to 6 reps, I can complete 4 to 6 reps in 20 seconds.
Boom, 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 boom.
Even
right.
slow.
That's true. It's true.
I've timed it. It's 20 seconds for me to do 4 very controlled slow reps. If I'm lifting, let's just speak now to that woman who is an experienced lifter. I have so many questions, but if she's an experienced lifter and she's lifting truly that heavy, where she's not just saying, oh, there's 4, there's 6, but she's like, I can't do another. How long does the rest period need to be between before she starts her next set?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. More than 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. It's a long rest period.
Wow.
And that's why I see people in the gym taking up the rack on their phones, because they're actually resting. You need that. You need to do that if you're going to lift that heavy. It's hard to do this kind of lifting on a circuit. You know how on lighter weights, people work their way around. It's hard in my opinion, doing this, it's hard to do that with this kind of lifting. So we're lifting for strength. When we're ready, we add tempo for power, right? Slow down, explosive up. Because that is what's going to keep us from losing our independence as we age. That is the reason, right? Why we need muscle for metabolic health, but why am I going to do that anyway? Well, because it happened. I took a train here today. I saw it twice today. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, no matter what age I am. And I may want to ask for help just because I have nothing to prove anymore. When I was a young surgeon, I wouldn't let anybody help me because I'm like, I've got to do this to prove I have nothing to prove. But today, twice on the train, I saw 2 women, maybe in their 60s, who had to ask perfect strangers to lift their suitcases above their head. And that's not a judgment when I'm talking about this, but I may ask a perfect stranger to do it because I want to, not because I'm incapable of taking care of myself, because that makes me vulnerable and unsafe, and I refuse to be that way. So does that even ring true? I mean, I'll ask for help if I want to, but not because I'm feeble.
Yeah, my biggest fear when it comes to aging, I have no fear about aging other than being dependent on other people or robbing other people of their life because they have to care for me because of things I could have done and I didn't.
Yes. Do you know, I actually say that to people when they're in my office and they're like, I don't want to be a burden to my children. And people know what they get when they're coming to me, because I'll say right back, well, then we need to act now, don't we? We can't just say our knees hurt. We need to do these things.
Overwhelmingly, the number of women who are watching this right now or listening, they're not ready for the 4 to 6 reps yet. They haven't mastered form, technique. They don't know splits, what body parts to work, any of those things. So let's speak to her, the woman who's like, okay, I used to lift a long time ago. I've done some strength training. I kind of understand it. Where does she start? How many days per week? Let's start with that.
It actually depends on how far back we're starting. If we're an adult onset exerciser, meaning we've really been watching, we've never done it, then we may need to start with body weight. The dynamic warm-up may wear you out. We can't hold our body weight up in a plank. It will take some time to even get to the place where we could pick up a weight, right? If we're someone who is doing some kind of working out, but not in a really structured way, we're kind of playing around in the gym, we're just grabbing some machine. And so for that, I really think that's the time that instead of investing in another gorgeous purse, we invest in a trainer, because this is a skill to be taught the form, how to hinge, how to stack your joints so you're not putting undue stress on your tendons. That's a skill. Gyms have mirrors, not to admire ourselves, but to check our form. But sometimes it's even hard to see that. So I think for that middle woman who wants to take the next step into heavier lifting, it's a good thing to hire an expert, even for a short amount of time.
The confidence that it gives you to have an expert at anything, right? Whether it's interior design or anything where you're like, I think this is right, But to have an expert to say, this is good form. Now, when you're doing it this way, here's how to use the machines or how to re-rack the weights or gym etiquette, all those things really intimidate women. For the woman, though, who's like, I just don't have the means by which to join a gym or the time or whatever, to have a trainer go to the gym, and she's working out at home, there are great at-home programs.
Absolutely. Digital, we're so lucky now that take you through the technique, right? It's not just do this lift. It's here's how you do it. Here's the steps. Watch me do it, being cued visually.
What if she doesn't care about longevity? I think we all say that, but when push comes to shove, my personal belief, especially in the last 3 years and some things I've seen, is that a lot of people say longevity, but at the end of the day, they will compromise living a long, powerful life to be thin.
Oh, yes, because that's what we see now. That's what we see now. Well, here's the good part is if we are lifting, we will lean up. And I don't think I made this up, but I sure wish I did. But muscle is nature's Spanx. Like everything goes like, and then everything will look great when you wear it because thin is not lean. Thin isn't necessarily lean. I tell the story of I was once invited to New York Fashion Week. I probably will never be invited back because I talk about this. The thinnest people I've ever seen, but not defined, not lean, probably not incredibly strong. For a lifetime strong. Strong for the day, but not for the lifetime.
We are real focused, and I think that's one of the reasons women ask the question, cardio or weights? And I will often respond back and say, what's the goal? If the goal is to be smaller without muscle, well, then maybe the answer is
go run 150 miles.
But if the answer is I want to be smaller and tighter, I want to have less cellulite and I want to have power and I want to have more confidence.
Little definition.
And a better shape, what's the answer?
Lifting. So okay. If you can only find a half an hour a day, then you warm up and you lift something. And if you can't do that in a gym, I talk about this kid all the time. My grandson is a 3-year-old and he weighs well over 40 pounds. Oh, so if I'm lifting him, that's an actual thing, right? If I'm squatting with him like a sumo squat,
He's a
thing.
kettlebell.
He's a kettlebell, this lovely child. But I think or grab a bucket of water at home, go water your garden, carry the 5. We could find a way. There's a scientist whom I just adore, who she typically goes out to the woods and picks up logs. It's not always in a gym. So I don't want iron to be a barrier. Find something in the house. My 86-year-old mother, who is of a generation who never would have thought of working out. Poor woman, she lives with me. She hears it all the time. And she had gotten really sick during COVID, so we're working back on her muscle and her energy. I see her out around our pool, and she's doing something like this. I'm like, what is she doing today? She had gotten the big Campbell soup cans out of the cupboard, and she wanted to lift something, so she was doing this in her house. And then it just made me know that when you're determined, you can find something to lift in your house. Because I don't want metal to be a barrier to people. You know what I mean? I can't go to the gym, I'm embarrassed, I don't know what to do, I can't hire a trainer. Okay. My 86-year-old mother picked up the heaviest soup can she could find. I'm sure there's other things around the house that we could improvise with, right? Or even going back to the old things that we learned in gym class.
Calisthenics?
Calisthenics. I mean, when I was in grade school, we had to do all those body weight push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. And if we're just starting out, those are legitimate.
Is there a point at which, though, that it's much, much harder to build muscle? Like, is it too late if I'm 75 years old and I've never lifted weights?
There is never an age or skill level when your body will not respond to the positive stress you put on it, because this body is designed to adapt. Is it slower to put on muscle at 75 than it was at 35? Yes, for a variety of reasons we can talk about. Is it impossible? No. Whether we are actually building physical muscle or whether we're just reorganizing our neuromuscular pathways to function better together and therefore improving our functional outcomes. There's never an age or skill level at all. Our body is designed to adapt.
You're an orthopedic surgeon. You operate on people who break hips and break, shatter elbows, etc. You see people who've had falls. You deal with people who are in geriatrics and in decline in life, and decline in their ability to just like take care of themselves, etc. What do you hear is their number one regret? A woman who's now going on the operating table and having her hip repaired.
She will very often say, in a regretful way, if she's even lucid, if she has a memory, because the stress of hurting yourself often takes that away temporarily, or maybe she's one of the 2/3 of all Alzheimer's people with Alzheimer's who is a woman, 2/3 of all that. It's a staggering statistic, but often, even in those states, she will be lucid long enough to say things like, I haven't always been like this. I was once like you, and she'll point to me or her usually eldest daughter there. I was once like you. So I hear in that the regret of what happened to me. I think the underlying current is what happened to me.
What did happen? And how do I avoid it? I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, it takes a daily investment. We cannot live our entire lives on the health we've built up in our 20s and 30s. We cannot. Because the reality is men and women age differently. Men will age in a slow, steady decline. If we take bones, 1% a year, they may lose their bone density. Women, because estrogen covers every single organ in our body and is an anabolic steroid, it has remarkable effects on every organ. We age or plateau in a steady decline until our ovaries stop making estrogen, and then we have a cataclysmic onset of more rapid aging, whether it is 40% more heart disease, whether it is 20% increase in 20% more loss of bone density around this time that is timed with the loss of estrogen. So men and women do not age the same, and we can't just assume that if men are going to age in a slow, steady decline, that women are going to age in that same way, because women are winning the longevity race. We live longer than men, but we're not as healthy.
I also like you saying that cataclysmic point, right? Like if you talk to women, like my girlfriends who are all my age, it's like a moment where you feel like everything just falls off the cliff, where you literally feel like you wake up one day and you look in the mirror and you're like, is this Freaky Friday? How did I get old in the last 24 hours? It literally feels like it's that instantaneous. But there's things that we can do. And when you talk about, people having women having limited time, right? Again, I think longevity is something we all aspire to, but at the end of the day, like what really matters most is like how I look, right? So if she only has, let's say, 30 minutes, are you going to have her and she also knows she's got to worry about her cardiovascular health. So what type of activity would you tell her to prioritize so that she can build muscle and she's taking care of her cardio?
So if we literally have 30 minutes a day for ourselves, then for those days, for 30 minutes, let's lift, right? Because that we could do 2 leg days in 30 minutes. You can't do a lot of things. Squats, deadlifts on 2 separate days, and then 2 arm days. Or maybe if we don't even have that much time, we do 1 good arm day and the rest is legs. Because if we want to not become frail, the muscles below our belly button are the most important. Our arms will come along, but it's everything below our belly button. So if I really only had half an hour, that's how I would do it. I would do 1 big muscle group each of those days, prioritizing our legs, right? And then the other 3 or 4 days a week, you can walk rapidly, if that's really all we've got.
What about, so I've got to get some cardio in, I've got to lift weights. And now I know, because I'm hearing from everyone, I need to think about mobility and flexibility. And what's the difference between flexibility and mobility? And why do I care about being either one?
So flexibility infers muscle, tendon, ligament length. So tendons and ligaments are made out of strands of collagen, which lay aligned with each other. When you look under a microscope, they're aligned. And so they are cross-linked. If there's two, think of two ropes. They're cross-linked by bonds, but as we age, those bonds become tighter and tighter. It's called covalent bonding. So our tendons and ligaments get tighter and tighter.
What makes them get tighter? Is it not using them as much, or is it the aging process or hormones?
Aging process and not using them, because if we continue to keep them flexible with dynamic stretching before, static stretching after our other workouts, or Pilates or yoga, then they will retain more of their natural length. Because what we're trying to do is, by retaining the flexibility in our ligament, tendon, and muscle, we keep the mobility of our joints, because we want our knees to fully extend and fully bend, our hips to fully extend and fully bend. We're in Florida right now. Think of when we see older people walking on the sidewalk, they're hunched over, their hips are bent, their knees are really bent. They've lost the joint motion because their tendons and ligaments didn't stay out to length, plus probably they've got some arthritis. So it comes one on top of the other, versus letting them get tighter and tighter and tighter so that they don't contract as powerfully. And we get injured all the time, because then if we go try to jump off something, then they're going to tear because they're not as flexible. So that's flexibility and mobility. And those don't take a long time every day.
I did a fitness program, an infomercial, and a program that people still do called PIO. And it is flexibility and mobility. And when I created that program 30 years ago, I was doing it several times a week, for at least an hour. And I continued doing that 3 to 5, probably like 3 times a week for an hour, again, for almost 30 years. And then when I stopped teaching and I stopped doing fitness videos, I still had that flexibility. I still had that mobility. But in my mind, I thought, I'm not going to prioritize that, because you don't look at someone and go like, oh, wow, they're flexible. Yeah, I was like, I'm going to prioritize my muscle. I'm going to prioritize the aesthetics, right? And so I stopped doing the mobility and flexibility training completely. And it caught up with me pretty quickly. And then I was like, I'm really tight. Everything hurts. My knees were hurting. Like everything kind of hurt. And I'm like, I told myself, I guess this is aging. Dang it. I don't want to do this. In my mind, I kept thinking I have to do an hour of this. But I eventually realized, what if I just did it in between my sets? That 2 to 3 minutes where I'm resting, or a minute even between my sets. What if I worked on mobility then? What a huge difference. Now, I don't know. That's not like a scientific study or the study of one. But how much time should somebody who's doing nothing right now, how much time should they set aside to be doing a little bit of mobility, flexibility work weekly?
If you're talking about static stretching, meaning, how we were taught in gym, nothing as fluid as the program you've built, because I've seen you do that. That is more like a dynamic workout. Which for dynamic warm-ups, which I ask people to do before they lift, it only takes about 10 minutes. It's not really a long time, because we just need every joint to be warm. We need all the blood flowing through the muscles. But I'm getting to the data. Data show that for static stretching, you get the most benefit from 4 reps if you hold them for 30 seconds.
For static, okay.
Static, long, slow stretches, not ballistic, not hopping, not 10-second stretches, nice long 30 seconds. And what you'll find is at the end of that stretch, you'll feel a little give, and that you'll get the most out of 4 reps.
And is static stretching ideal for flexibility versus mobility?
Static is just flexibility, but after your workout. We do it after we're done.
The stuff that we're doing dynamically, like moving in and out of, let's say,
walking lunges or open book type stretches.
Okay.
And
a Cossack squat. Are those things specifically for mobility?
For joint mobility.
And that's dynamic movement. So we're moving through it.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
More like the program that I saw you. In fact, I think what I've seen you do with PIO, that would be an amazing way to warm up dynamically, from what I've seen of it, all joints would be warmed up and then go lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my PIO program, which is interesting, is I taught that workout at the event that you spoke at, Camp Be More. And I was probably 5 minutes into that workout looking out at the crowd of women, and I looked around and I realized they're not ready for
Nobody's
this.
doing it.
They can't do this. They can't do this. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm not the only one who took a break from flexibility and mobility. And so I started realizing, like, I need something that's more of an on-ramp, something that's more doable, something that you can do and hold onto a chair and not have to go upside down and wonder where's the instructor. You know what I mean? And so I really started developing just simple sequences that you can memorize, and just, it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it feels so good. And I think that we've got this mindset like, okay, I need an hour of walking and an hour of weight training and an hour of flexibility and mobility. And the truth is, you can kind of squeeze it all into one workout. It takes some planning. It takes a plan, if you will, and a place to start that's doable. But when I think about, again, the woman that we're speaking to, and the reason why she's asking all these questions is she wants to look good. She wants to be smaller. She wants to be lean, but she also doesn't want to be frail. And I think we have to shift. There's a lot of brainwashing. Gen X women in particular, we've been brainwashed into like, you got to be tiny, you got to be small, cardio. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at people who, like when I go to the gym, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but when I go to the gym, the most fit people, let me ask you, what area of the gym do you see the most fit people? The most beautiful bodies?
In the racks. Not even the machines, in the racks. Or machines that mimic racks.
Can she get started at home? I guess that's an obvious yes. But does she have to go to the gym?
I think there's a lot of reasons people can't get to a gym. My office is in a performance club, and sometimes I don't even like to go because it's just too crowded. There's too many bros around. It's all the things, right? I don't think we have. I mean, I think expert people like you have made it so easy to do it at home with things that you can buy. You can buy, there's now weights where it's one handle somehow and you put a pin in and it's different weights. So I think until you're hauling around 50 pounds or more, you can probably do it at home.
Yeah. And even the attachments to doors now, so you have the right angles to work muscles versus, you can buy the bands off of Amazon and get a strength training. Does your muscle know the difference between the resistance that's created from a heavy weight versus a band? And specifically when it comes to bone density?
That is a very interesting question because weights are easier to quantify, aren't they? Yeah. I know it's a 50-pound thing versus if I have a 3-inch thick band, I know it's hard, but I don't know how much it's pressure it's putting on me. There are some machines that, the good thing about bands though, that you don't get with barbells, for instance, is resistance coming and going. Meaning resistance this way and then resistance this way. With a band, you get that. And there are some pro athletes who only work out with bands. Tom Brady's whole system, TB12, is based on bands. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. There are certain exercises where I swear that bands are like so much harder. But what about for bone density?
All our bones need is a mechanical stress pulling on them. So I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't know. I haven't read this, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say if your muscles are straining under band or weight, when it comes to muscle and bone, all the bone knows is that the muscle and the tendon are pulling on it. That's all it knows. And that's a mechanical stress on the bone, which is translated into a biochemical signal to lay down more bone. I don't know if bone knows the difference between 45 pounds of pressure in metal and 45 pounds of pressure with a band.
Probably not.
I could be wrong, but I don't think it knows.
Why do we need to even think about bone density? Why does that matter?
I love that you're asking this. So most people don't think about their bones at all unless they're looking in a mirror, or Aunt Mabel has fallen and broken her hip, and then the whole family's forced to think about it. But the reason we need to really be interested in our bone is because it's not a disease of old ladies. It's actually a problem that begins in our 20s, because we lay down bone between puberty and about 25, with peak bone density being achieved around 25 to 30 for men and women. So we're just great boned, if we're great boned by then. And so think about it this way. Can we build bone in later years? Yes. But if we're starting out with a lot of great bone density, then our 1% decline per year, which then for women precipitously drops to twice that, we're starting at a better level, right? So we need to be concerned about building better bone in our youth by all the things: impacting, eating, getting under some weights, while we have the estrogen to support that. And then around 30, our bone density will kind of plateau, and mid 30s, early 40s will start this decline until, for women, our estrogen goes away because our ovaries retire and we have a cataclysmic decline in bone density. But if we never built enough bone, and I may have said this here before, I get a DEXA scan on everybody, almost everybody that walks in my door.
Can you explain what a DEXA scan
A
is?
DEXA scan uses X-ray imaging to tell the bone mineralization, how much density of minerals the bone has. There's another way to measure bone quality, which is called a REM scan, which uses ultrasound and really tells us the quality of the bone. Can it bend but not break? What is the quality? Because we break because we overcome the bone's ability to bend under pressure, which has much to do with the flexibility of the bone versus the mineralization of the bone. But all I have available to me right now is a DEXA scanner. So I get it on almost everybody who comes in, and even 20-year-old women, 24-year-old women, 30-year-old women. I'm thinking specifically of recent DEXA scans. These women in the youth of their life have poor bone because they've never laid it down enough. Maybe they've used too much energy, and so they didn't lay down bone, meaning many athletes will not have a period for 6 months, 9 months. I didn't. I was a dancer and I was happy at the time, but I know now that was not great for my health. So maybe we use too much energy and underfeed. Maybe women in our generation wanted to be this big and starved ourselves. Maybe current women, because they're all digital natives, sit around too much and aren't building bone through the impact. But you get to this place where you don't have enough bone. And then for women who decide to have children, it takes about 500 milligrams of calcium a day to build a baby. You're going to get that from somewhere. Yeah. You're either going to eat it or you're going to take it from your own bones. Yeah. And so because women are waiting longer now to have children than my generation, they may go right from childbearing or having children in rapid succession because there's not that much time left, and never have time to rebuild that. The body, a mother's body is made to rebuild bone, but often they don't. And there's this thing called osteoporosis of pregnancy.
Oh.
I know. And because this is not talked about that much. And I am a big proponent for women who want to breastfeed. I am not saying don't breastfeed. I mean, I did it. It takes about 500 milligrams of calcium a day to build milk for your baby. And so if we're so busy, we're not eating, we're not latching on and eating something full of calcium, we may not build back enough bone.
Well, all these things you're talking about, I have to imagine that most people listening are thinking, I've never even thought about laying down bone. I've never even thought about building bone. Like, it's just not something, like you said, it's not something you think about.
We don't think about bones until we break one.
Or until we have a DEXA scan. So when I had my DEXA scan at age 46, was the first time I was told I had osteopenia.
Weren't you surprised by that?
I was shocked because I'm like, how is that possible?
You worked out your whole life.
I lift heavy weights. I do all the things. How is this possible? But there were some major deficiencies in my diet that I wasn't aware of. I wasn't doing omegas. I wasn't doing a vitamin D. I wasn't getting sunshine. I wasn't doing magnesium. I was lifting, but I wasn't doing a lot of like strength training where it was skeletal, like weight on my skeletal system.
Do you think your whole career you've eaten enough food, or
Oh,
when we were
hell
the
no.
skinny times in our lives? So that contributed, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Back to a DEXA scan.
Yes.
Because not very many people have even heard of a DEXA scan. And this is when I have my DEXA scan, I could see my body fat. I could see my bone density. I'm trying to think what other things.
Percent body fat, pounds of muscle, bone density. Some will tell you distribution depending on how your doctor
Yep.
orders it. Distribution of fat, meaning is it on your hips or is it
Yes.
smothering your bellies, which
Yes.
matters, right?
Yeah.
But you can take those data, and when you're talking about bone density specifically, it gives you a score called a T-score. A T-score measures your current bone density against the bone density of a healthy, air quote, healthy 30-year-old woman. Because at 30, we've built our peak bone density. So if you have your T-scores in front of you, everybody pull out their papers. A positive T-score means great. You have good bone density. A T-score from 0 to -1 is still considered normal, but -1 is the definition of osteopenia, which means low bone density. A T-score of -2.5 is the definition of osteoporosis, which literally means holy bones, which means with osteoporosis, you have about a 40 to 50% chance of having a fracture in your lifetime. So having low bone density and a T-scores below 2.5 puts you at a much higher risk for fracture. And why do we care about that? Well, if we take, number one, fractures hurt. And if you fall and get tripped by your dog and break your wrist, it's inconvenient. It takes 3 months to heal in a cast, right? But if you fall and break your hip, 70% of all hip fractures are in women. Snap your fingers, the minute you hit the ground and break that hip, you have a 30% chance of dying in the first year due to the complications of having a major fracture like that. And 50% of the time, you will not get to go home. And why is that? Because you will not be able to return to the function you had before.
I get this question all the time. People say, well, what doctor can I go to look at these things? Because when I go in for an annual checkup, they don't run any of those tests. Yeah. Unfortunately, I will say that for a lot of people, they don't have access to that through their insurance, because sometimes insurance companies, they just don't cover those things. And for many of us, it's hard to find a doctor who actually does like longevity visits. That's what I call this. It's like, I don't buy purses. I don't buy expensive shoes. I don't buy expensive jewelry. What I like to spend my money on are things that help me to age powerfully. So like I'll do hyperbaric oxygen, or to do a DEXA scan to look at, to actually you have a scan that tells me my bone density, tells me my body fat level, to look at my hormone levels. Like all of these things relate to living and aging powerfully, aging well, if you will. And it's hard to find doctors who specialize in that type of care. I will say, I recently discovered that the company that I've referred many of you to for women's hormone health, which is MIDI Health, they offer an age well consultation. So that means all of those markers, all those things that you can't get your doctor to prescribe for you, like a DEXA scan or blood panels or looking at your hormone panels, any of those things, you can book an age well appointment through MIDI Health. If you're already a MIDI customer, that's awesome. If you're not, just go to chalene.com/MIDI, MIDI. What I love about MIDI, which is unique for some of you are paying way too much for your longevity appointments as it is. I mean, you can pay up to $2,000 for a concierge doctor. With MIDI, it's super duper affordable, and they work with almost every single major health insurance company in the nation. This is a company that is devoted to helping women age powerfully. So book yourself an age well appointment. They have consultants in every single state, all 50 states. And again, they accept most insurance. So check it out. It's just one of those, like, that's where I want to spend my money. Like now I see someone carrying an expensive purse. I'm like, what is that going to do for your life? You know what I mean? I know I used to have them, but anyways, now that's where I like to spend my money. What does that mean for me? It means I do the extras. I do the supplements. I watch my hormones. I do my DEXA scan. I'm spending my money on things that help me to age well. I've got multiple gym memberships. And to make these things affordable, I recommend MIDI. Go to Chalene.com/MIDI, MIDI. These statistics are for women over what age?
Well, it takes all comers, but usually these dire statistics are in 70 and 80-year-old women, the older women. Because I have a 57-year-old woman who broke her hip that I describe in this book, but she still broke her hip. It still took her 6 months to heal. It took complete lifestyle revolution to get her back to the place. And she was pissed that at 56, she had this thing. So for a younger woman, you can still break your hip, even if you think you're doing everything right. Because remember, I have a lot of young women with osteoporosis. It is not a respecter of age. But when you are older and you break your hip and can't go back home, it's because you can't walk independently. You can't get up from a chair. So what does that force your family to do? Especially, I agree with you. Many people tell me they don't want to be a burden to their family. Well, it either makes you hire somebody full-time to take care of you. That's expensive. Yeah. You got to move in with somebody, which lots of people don't want to do. You got to move into a nursing home or assisted living, which is really expensive. In this country, $7,000 to $15,000 a month. And if you can't afford it, what the current system is, you must use up all your life savings until a certain level, and then you can get government assistance. Those are hard choices, all for something that if we had started back here by even recognizing that bones were important in our 20s and 30s, we may have been able to prevent, or we make our hormone optimization decision at the time when we're losing our hormones and never let our bone density drop by 20%, because estrogen is a critical hormone for bone health. It helps prevent the imbalance that happens in perimenopause and menopause when we're breaking down bone faster than we can build it. Because data has shown that we need to, if we choose to optimize our hormones, for most effect on outcomes of fracture, we need to do it for about 10 years. So we need to start younger, not consider it when we break something, right?
Yeah.
So this is why I say bone health is a lifetime pursuit, not just a disease of old women. We see the sequelae of it in older women, but it's something we should be concerned of our whole lives.
Is that why you are such a advocate for becoming stronger, because our muscles help us to have stronger bones?
Absolutely. It's one of the key components when we're thinking of how do we build bone. There's a hierarchy. It is make your hormone optimization decision and lift weights.
Okay. When you say hormone optimization decision, are you basically saying consider
Estrogen,
all the information you need for
and testosterone,
supplementing your hormones,
yes,
and not necessarily like bringing them back to optimal levels?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So often I hear women say, well, okay, but what about me? I went through menopause last year. So is it too late for me?
No, it's not too late. In fact, if you love to watch what the Menopause Society says, their current guidelines have no problem with you getting a evaluation for hormones for 10 years. You can start at any time. Now, there are some women who cannot, and I understand that, or don't want to. Many women don't want to. But the first 10 years are easy. After that, however, with a risk assessment of your cardiac function and whatever other risk factors you may have, most of the doctors treating menopause don't believe that there's an upper age limit. Does it become more tricky once cardiovascular disease starts rearing its ugly head? Well, if we're talking about stroke, you need a risk assessment. But for absolute cardiovascular disease, small vessel disease, there's probably not a lot of added risk. So everybody deserves an assessment, no matter what your age or skill level, of whether hormones can help you. And I don't think enough women do it because we are still stuck behind the mythology of the WHI.
Absolutely. And then you've been going to your same doctor for 10 years, and they have a white lab coat on, and they have more education than you. They're the expert, and they have, I mean, even if you do decide to see, oh, I'm going to go see an expert, I'm going to go see an endocrinologist, or I'm going to find someone who specializes in women's hormone health, it's hard to find.
Very hard to find.
Very hard to find.
So hard to find. And here's why. Only 31% of all OB-GYNs, who I don't think it's their sole responsibility to know this material, but only 31% are taught anything in residency. Very few medical students. I've read a stat, maybe 7% of medical students. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I don't think we ever talked about it other than somebody broke their hip. Should they get a DEXA scan now?
That's wild.
It is wild. Where are the bone doctors? Where are the bone doctors? Doctors are just not taught, especially after the WHI in 2002, then generations of doctors were never taught. So no wonder it's hard to find somebody who can have a cogent discussion of this. But here's the deal. If it was your kid, you would search to the end of the earth to find the solution if they were sick. And that is the kind of curiosity I want women to have for themselves, and not just accept an unsatisfactory answer or being blown off. If somebody that is caring for you for 10 years, maybe your OB-GYN, just blows off the question, well, maybe you can still go to that person for your annual cervical exam. But maybe we need to dig deeper to find someone who will at least have a conversation, whether that person is in your town, which it's very hard, or whether it's one of the tremendous telehealth companies now that exist.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, right?
Yeah. When I'm thinking about my bone density and I'm being inundated with people like Chalene Johnson telling me that I'm supposed to be walking, getting in more steps. But if I have limited amount of time, am I making myself weaker by prioritizing all this time walking, and if I'm not spending any time lifting?
If you choose,
I mean, shoot straight with us. You
if
can
you
tell
choose
us
to walk only 7 days a week, you're going to build some good cardiovascular health, but you are not going to build enough muscle. Walking, unless you're walking uphill all the time, you're not going to build enough muscle. So I am of the personal opinion that the steps that I walk back and forth in my office count, right?
Absolutely.
I don't have to go out and spend 3 hours walking. If I have a half an hour, I'm going to go lift something heavy, because that is going to get me where I need to go, and your heart rate will go up. So if I have to choose, I don't want you to make me choose, but if I have to choose, I'm going to build some muscle, not only for my strength, not only because I'm going to be lean, but because it is a metabolic sink of glucose. It is better for our metabolism. It helps with our insulin resistance. It is it's a endocrine organ, which talks to our brain, talks to the bone, talks to the fat. Musculoskeletal system is fascinating. We tend to think that muscle does its thing, bone does its thing, fat does its thing. No, Chalene, they're all from the same stem cell. They are cousins. They talk to each other all the time. They have a chat group. They're checking in all the time by sending hormonal signals back and forth, so that bone and muscle talk about energy expenditure, about building bone. Muscle and fat talk, bone and fat talk, and they all talk to the brain. So our bodies are miraculous, and they don't do one thing. Muscle is not just meant to look good. It's not just meant to locomote us or help us pick things up. It's a metabolic organ, just like bone is, just like fat is. That's why fat's bad for you. It's not just hanging off in inconvenient locations. It is a noxious metabolic organ when it's smothering your organs, when it's visceral fat, right? So I want this perspective that I'm getting so passionate about for people to realize it's not just the superficial level. Oh, but you will get better fitting clothes if you're leaner. I mean, listen, I'm as vain as they come. I want things to be a certain way in the mirror, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the bonuses you get by building muscle, by being lean, are really what are going to make you healthy. Here are some data that are going to be surprising. To absorb our calcium in our diet, we do need vitamin D. We sure do. The studies do not strongly support taking vitamin D just for bone health alone. Do we need vitamin D for everything? Our immune system, our brain, for absorption of calcium? We sure do, and I want you to take it. But if we're only doing it to build better bone, it's most supportive of that by helping the absorption of calcium. Interestingly, same with magnesium. We need magnesium for 300 or so enzymatic reactions in our body. It's a part of our bones, but does magnesium itself give you more mineralization? I wouldn't take magnesium alone just for my bones, but I would take it for everything else, and I would take it for my sleep. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So I'm not telling you not to take it. I'm just telling you if you think it's only for your bones, it's for everything.
So for most women then, I would assume you would suggest we probably have to supplement because very
With
few of us are
vitamin D?
eating or supplement in general. Like we're not getting enough magnesium. We're not getting enough vitamin D. What about omegas?
Unless you're eating a lot of salmon, oily fish, probably not. I think a good omega-3 supplement that is not fish trash. You have to be careful
Yeah.
about, you have to read labels. Where is it purified? But yeah, 3,000 milligrams. I think that is the number of omegas.
Okay, so that seems like these are lifestyle adjustments. It's not major. And then it's being consistent. It's understanding that when you're lifting weights, it's not just for the aesthetic, it's also for longevity. It's for your bone health. And that bone health and our muscles, those are all those things speak to each other. They release hormones. As you know, before we started filming today, you were telling me that bones can actually affect our appetite.
So isn't this fascinating? And I want to talk about that, and let's talk about how it changes our brain. So bones are endocrine organs, meaning they will secrete hormones. One I love to talk about and one that I almost never talk about. The one I talk about is called osteocalcin. It is secreted by one of the most prominent bone cells, but it doesn't just talk to itself. It goes to the brain and stimulates the production of something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor to build more neurons, right? The bone does that.
Wow.
Through osteocalcin. It goes to the pancreas and helps with secretion of insulin and insulin regulation. It goes to the muscle and helps with glucose absorption and regulation. If you're a guy, it goes to your testicles and helps you make testosterone. The bone does that,
Wow.
right? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
The bone also secretes another hormone called LCN2, which does many things, but it specifically goes to the brain and helps tell your brain when you're full. Satiety, it's a satiety factor. But when you think of why would the bone be interested in insulin and glucose metabolism and satiety, the bone is the storehouse of the body. All the minerals and lots of the protein are stored in bone. Of course, bone is interested in our energy balance and has a role to say in it. But isn't that fascinating? Because we never think of it that way. Bone is also the incubator of our blood cells. All of our blood cells are made in our pelvis and when we're young in our long bones. So bones make your blood cells. Isn't that I mean, who thinks about things like that?
Yeah.
Locomotion, structure, storehouse, incubator, endocrine organ. Fascinating. But if you think about, if I were going to design somebody, why wouldn't I put this communication highway, this multifaceted organ? Why wouldn't I make bone that? Because we have bone from the top of our head to the bottom of our pinky toe. We don't have much muscle outside of our skull, right? It's bone. So it's this pathway through our whole body. Why wouldn't we design ourselves that way? Or why wouldn't we be designed that way? Isn't that fascinating?
It is, and it's something that we don't talk about. Again, I think it's because we don't see it, like out of sight, out of mind, but it's our foundation.
Yeah,
To be unbreakable, there are things you need to do. And to know what you need to do sometimes means you have to start with like an assessment. So for me, taking that DEXA scan was eye-opening because I just assumed I was going to be super healthy. Why wouldn't I have great bones? I thought I was doing all the things right. In your book, Unbreakable, you talk people through how to assess where they're at, like basically give themselves a score. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, your body is always talking to you, and sometimes we don't know how to listen.
Yeah.
So the DEXA scan is a way to listen to your bones. Blood work is a way to listen to your organs, for instance. In Unbreakable, we have an entire chapter where we're helping you listen to your functional body we've taken the top 8 activities that the research shows predicts health and longevity, and we've weighted them using all kinds of scientific math to say what are the most important ones. So there are 8. We start out with VO2 max and sit and rise, which is, can you get up and down off the floor?
How does somebody at home know their VO2 max?
Yeah. Well, we teach you. Actually, there's a method where without the fancy masks that you see in metabolic labs, you can time uh, how far you can go in 12 minutes.
And that is also detailed in the app, if I'm not mistaken.
So, yes. So these things, the Unbreakable assessment, the book comes with an app that'll be live when the book becomes live in households. And you can put in your data and it will calculate your Unbreakable score. So you know where you're starting and you'll know what you need to work on. I mean, is it a cardiovascular problem? Do we need more muscle to get up off the floor? And then as we go along, we've hooked AI into it so that based on your own data, we'll give you personalized instructions. For instance, it looks like your VO2 max needs some work. Here's how you do that. And there's a Norwegian protocol that you can do. We'd explain it all in the book, but some people are digital.
Yeah.
Some people are paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some people are audio. I've read this book into the audio book. So we've covered all the senses.
I love that.
For learning. But I think it's important to know where we start. And sometimes we need help listening to our bodies. Even though our body's always talking, sometimes we don't know how to listen. And then once you implement the training programs that I'm suggesting, you can retest. Or maybe you go online and get some other programs and retest. Because here's the deal. I don't think those numbers are judgments. Sometimes we internalize assessments as they're just numbers to help us understand ourselves.
It's data.
It's data.
So if you're watching now on YouTube, I'm going to put a QR code up on the screen, and all you do is just take a screenshot of your phone if you're watching it on your phone or if you're watching it up on a giant TV. I hope you don't have high definition. If you do, put some Vaseline on your TV. But all you have to do is grab your phone and just take a picture of the screen right now. And then when you open up your camera roll, you can just tap on that little QR code and that'll take you directly to her book. Inside the book, that's where you have access to the app. And why I think this is so important is because we've shared a lot of information, and I know it can be overwhelming. We want it to be like one simple thing, like just put on a weighted vest, just eat this food, but it's not one thing. So to have a very personalized plan using their information that they can follow this and they know a starting point, just tell me what to do, right? And that's what I love about the book is that you do lay that out for people. And I love that, even with strength training, it's probably the number one question I get is how do I start if I don't have any equipment and I just want to do body weight? You've got this all laid out. If you do want to start doing a strength training program, this is gold.
Do you know what that is?
What
that is the last program that my SCS strength conditioning coach designed for me.
Wow.
Isn't that funny? Because it's a real live program that works.
And it never goes out of style. I always say, it's the foundational things. There's no creative new way to do a bicep curl. You want to stick to the basics. And I love all the compound exercises. So this is a fantastic plan. We need a plan. You need to know where you're at. So you're starting and then you can assess. We do improve what it is we're able to track. The one thing my brain just remembered, a question I forgot to ask you, was about your thoughts on progressive overload. Is that important?
It's the only way to lift, right? So progressive overload meaning let's use an example. Once you can, for instance, if you're in the heavy lifting stage, once you can do 4 lifts of, I'll name a weight. Once I can squat, I think when I wrote this book, I was deadlifting 175. Once I can do that, and I could do many more reps, I could pound out 6 or 8, it's time to add some more weight onto the side of that. Not 100 more pounds, but maybe 10% more. so that I'm back to lifting what I could lift 4 times with a couple reps in reserve. That is progressive overload, meaning I'm going to challenge myself the next time, put some more weight on it.
Could I also challenge myself by taking that same weight and now instead of doing 4 to 6 reps, I'm going to try to do 8 reps today?
You could do 8 reps. For women, lifting heavier with lower is better. 8 is a great number for men. You could also vary the tempo. You can also do hard work by varying the tempo, 3 seconds down, explode up. There's lots of ways to do it. Because weightlifting, the science of it, and I'm not a muscle lifting physiologist, but there are lots of ways to get to one goal, right? So this plan I have in here is a beautiful way to start. I think when you work through it, I hope people will continue and seek out other plans. They'll just not stop at the 6 weeks. They'll say, okay, I've got this. Now let's go find my next progressive overload challenge.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We love having you. We love having you speak to my audience. My audience is upset. Like, we loved having you at Can't Be More.
Thank you.
Your episodes, I will link to your past episodes below in our show description. And the book is available now. So again, you can find it by going to the link below in our show description or the QR code that you're seeing now on the screen. This is when you want to pick up, because whether you want to do an Audible version of that, that's also available. But this is like it's your Bible, and it's going to walk you through the plan that you need from now till whenever. And you're going to be fitter and stronger and leaner and have better bones. Thanks for being here. I love you. I mean it. And we'll talk to you soon.